This August will represent the 2 year anniversary of becoming an independent analyst and starting Treeline Research. And as part of that process, I was digging through my archives and discovered an unpublished interview that I had done with the late Dr. Harvey Levenson. That was my first interview as an independent analyst, and I contacted him specifically to learn more about this book. Now, this book was my high school graphic arts class textbook. This is a first edition. It was first published in 1973 by McKnight, and it was authored by a gentleman named Richard Brookhausen. Mr. B, as he was known by his students. See, Mr. B was the high school graphic arts teacher at Nova High School in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And there's not much written about Mr. B, what happened to him, what happened to the program at Nova High School. I've reached out to Nova High School and have not heard back from them. So if anybody out there knows about the status of that program, what happened to it, I think we all can probably guess, and Dr. Levenson and I actually get into that a little bit in our conversation. But this is where our conversation starts. This interview is completely unedited. It's about 45 minutes, and I hope you enjoy listening to the conversation I had with the late Dr. Harvey Levenson.
So this way, you asked if I knew Mr. B
Yeah.
Or of his program, and I have to admit that I don't recall him. This does not mean that I didn't meet him or hear from him. I just don't recall him. Okay.
Sure.
So you sent me information about his book. So I looked it up to see if I can refresh my memory. And, I don't recall the book. I don't have I have many books. I have over 3,000 graphic arts books in my personal library at home.
Wow. That's amazing.
And about 30,000 at Cal Poly. So we have the largest graphic arts library at Cal Poly. We inherited the GATF library.
Oh, wow.
Now, I'll bet, I wouldn't be surprised if that book is not in the Cal Poly library. And at some point, we can get in touch, or I can give you information to get in touch with who's now the chair of the graphic communication department. And she can explore whether that book is in the library. It's housed in the graphic communication department, so it's easily accessible.
Okay.
I'm emeritus, so I'm not on campus.
Right. Understood. Yep.
But I'm connected with them. I still do some background work for them and this sort of thing. So I don't recall him. I don't personally recall the book. I looked at my collection. I don't see it there. But I'm not surprised. There were a number of different books that were used in schools at that time.
Right.
So, I'm not surprised by looking at the content of the book. I can see where it might have been a very valuable resource for high school programs.
Right. And, that's interesting, too, is that the lab, as you put it, I think is the grab. I'm so used to calling it a shop because that's what I grew up. I called it the shop, right? But the lab,
Back then,
the lab pretty much mirrors the content in the book. So, I think that's also kind of interesting too, that I don't know if the vendors were involved or if they just picked up the book and said, here's a list of equipment you need in your lab and go buy it. Who knows? But it's pretty interesting. I mean, the press bottles and everything, they match the book, what's in the book.
Well, let me give you a couple of thoughts on that. First, before I lose this thought, it occurred to me that, you're trying very hard to learn more about him. You mentioned in your email that his obituary doesn't say much. And I looked it up, and it doesn't say much. So the thought occurred to me, maybe there's family in the area that you can approach. His last name. It's an unusual last name, so
right.
I don't think there'd be many people with it. It might be easy to do a search, see if you can find his family, and that would be a direct link to more information for the kind of information that you're looking for. So that's a thought to share with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. So on the lab, well, I call it lab because today we try not to use certain words in the industry, and this is part of the problem with the industry. We got to get rid of terms like shop, vocation, trade, and this sort of thing, because those words do not typify the industry today, nor do they typify graphic arts education today, which mostly takes place on the 2-year or 4-year college level. Okay.
Right.
So I tend to use a lab instead of shop.
No, but it makes sense. I mean, you're elevating what is a most definitely an expertise, a skilled, educational based,
right.
business that unless you grew up in it like I did, and a lot of
right. Well, back then, you're right. Back then, it was a shop and this sort of thing, which emanated from the typical print shop that every community had.
Yep.
They had shoe shops and fish shops and this sort of thing, and they had a print shop. But that I guess the concept of the print shop was taken over by companies like that used to be called Kinko's or now Alpha Graphics.
Sure.
So,
yeah. Alpha Graphics is based here in Denver, actually.
Yeah, right, and but they are digital operations.
100%. Yep.
So, anyways, the back then, as far as the technology that you might have found in your print shop, as you call it, high schools often receive annual budgets, and at that time, printing was quite popular as a shop, and I wouldn't be surprised if that program was funded by the school budget that it receives every year. A certain portion of it went to different areas, and I'm sure the print shop was one of those areas.
Right.
When I was in high school, we also had a print shop. We took a shop class.
It was part of industrial arts, right? Yep.
Metal decorating or something like that. Metal shop. It was a print shop. It was a wood shop, and they were funded by school budgets that were handled down from the central school district. So maybe that's the way they got their equipment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just kind of fascinating because it seems old fashioned, sort of like the words that as you're describing it. That I guess I'm glad I was able to experience it. But even at the time when I was in that class in high school, it was, like I said, one class a day, and it was clearly sort of the end of the program, right? I think it may have disappeared a year or two after I graduated. So, it is interesting that now that it has elevated from, high school level to post, college level curriculum, and there obviously are a number of programs around the country. And how do you think they're faring relative to, we saw it disappear in the primary schools. Now we're in high schools. Now we're, are they challenged sort of at the next level as well in graphic arts, or do you see them thriving? And the reason I ask is this is really just my own knowledge, Harvey. This is an opportunity for me to learn from you. And quite frankly, I've been asked to actually chair a roundtable discussion at an event this fall, specifically on, I don't have the exact title here in front of me, but on hiring practices for print operators. What are they looking for in terms of skills, both in the print side as well as in the pre-press side? Where do you find those skills? What do you look for? Those types of things. But so this is very helpful sort of for my background.
Okay. So you said next level. What do you mean by the next level?
Well, so we saw this transition from, I think that these programs, if I had to guess, there are very few of these programs left in high schools anywhere in the country.
That's correct.
If any, right?
They're gone.
And now, so there are programs around the country that, you can get a degree in graphic arts. And I think there are a relative handful of those in the country, if I'm correct. Mm-hmm. How are they faring though as programs? Are they being well attended? Are kids having success coming out of those programs? Are those programs continuing to thrive and be supported by the industry? I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts are on that, because what I hear all the time is we can't find people, right? We can't find people. We can't find people that even know how to design for print, right?
Well,
design for.
Last week I was on a video call with Marksware, talking about pre-flighting,
Hmm.
and that was part of the discussion, that they hear a lot about their customers can't find employees, and there's a big employee shortage all over the country in a lot of industries, and the printing industry is one of them.
Right.
So this is a topic that's being discussed at various levels and different forums and this sort of thing. But I agree with you. The high school programs are pretty much gone. The junior college programs, meaning the 2-year programs, some of them are still there and doing fairly well. A lot of them are gone. On the 4-year level, it's not what it used to be. There are a number of programs that are thriving. There are a number of programs that are suffering and trying to survive, and there are a number of programs that have disappeared. Now, one of the issues on the 2-year college and the 4-year college has to do with the cost of laboratories. Graphic arts or printing programs, graphic communication, call it what you like, they're all the same. The terms mean basically the same thing. If you're not relying on industry donations, or if you can't get industry donations of very expensive equipment, the programs are very expensive. The universities, the colleges, they're all trying to cut back on costs. And when they look at academic cutbacks, they look at high cost programs. And graphic arts and printing, was one of them. And, I'm a product of 4 different programs. My first degree was from New York City Community College, which is now City Tech, New York City College of Technology. That really sprung me into this industry. And that program is doing fairly well. And it serves a diverse student body in Brooklyn, New York, where there's a need for a lot of young people to learn what we used to call trades,
Sure.
Basically career paths that give them something that they can do hands-on, get into the industry right away, contribute right away, understand the technology to a certain extent, and provide educational and employment opportunities for, in some cases, deprived communities, and this sort of thing. So they're doing pretty well because of their focus on diversity. And New York City is a very diverse community. Then I went on to RIT. Now, RIT, it's a different situation. Let me explain why. RIT has a wonderful reputation.
Right. Yeah. A lot of people, I have a lot of colleagues that went there. Right.
I had a wonderful experience there. But also, those laboratories also were extensive and very, very expensive.
Right.
However, with RIT, there was a different issue: the cost of education, the cost of tuition. Very expensive university. This is not saying it's more expensive than a lot of other universities. The cost of education keeps going up and up. Right. And RIT for a lot of years has been very expensive, and they've worked very hard. As an alumnus, I tried to help them out.
Yeah, it's probably similar to School of Mines here in near Denver in Golden. That's an engineering school that I think struggles from, they don't have the expensive labs, but it's a small college that amazing reputation, right? But very expensive, very expensive.
So RIT, when I was a student there and for many years after, there were enrollment in the graphic arts program, probably 3, 4, maybe 500 students. It was the biggest program in the nation for graphic arts. Now, on the undergraduate level, they're struggling. I think they have 30, 35 students in there. This is what I'm hearing. Okay, this is hearsay. and they're trying to develop grants, scholarships, industry support, but it's been very difficult. Now, on the graduate level, they appear to be doing very well because they're attracting an international student body. So, and that's a student body that is very often supported by their nation's governments. So I'm assuming that a lot of those international students in the RIP program are being funded by their home countries. So that takes care of that as far as tuition is concerned.
Yeah.
At South Dakota State University, where I got my master's degree, it's that the printing, it was the School of Printing and Journalism.
Oh, okay.
Printing is gone.
Right.
Mass media, mass communication,
Right.
all those labs we had there are gone. And what a work I did, my PhD was at Pitt, but that was a different kind of program. It was a rhetoric and communication program,
Right.
Having really nothing to do with printing, but it had to do with technology that has become part of the industry, aerospace technology, satellite transmission, and this sort of thing. That's what it me to it. Now at Cal Poly, where I was department head and chair for 30 years straight, high level of industry support. Okay, we have over 33,000 square feet of laboratories.
Wow.
Highly supported by the alumni, highly supported by industry, but that has also changed. Right. You will not see traditional printing equipment in that program now. You will see printing equipment, digital equipment.
Toner-based, inkjet-based, yeah, right.
Inkjet, toner-based, electrostatic, digital prepress, and this sort of thing. And a lot of packaging. Packaging has become packaging is, I often say, is probably the only traditional industry segment that has grown as a result of the internet, as opposed to declined. So packaging is very popular in a number of different academic programs, not only at Cal Poly, at Clemson University. They have a wonderful packaging program. I believe Western Michigan, and a number of others. And the academic community has picked up on that, this is a growing industry where there's a need for many, many people, technically aware, technically astute, and there's a big focus on packaging.
Yeah, and sustainability, environmental factors, recyclability, all that stuff. Oh, yeah.
That's all part of it.
Yeah.
And another factor to consider is the technologies that have become popular and of interest to young people exploring school opportunities, college opportunities. And those two areas are graphic design, which has been around for a long time, but then also digital imaging, internet stuff, web development, app development, this sort of thing. So a lot of the traditional printing, if I may, programs have now picked up on those disciplines to include in their what they now call, no one calls a printing program anymore.
Right.
Arts, graphic communication. At University of Houston, it's digital imaging, and this sort of thing. And so they see that, and those are relatively low cost in terms of capital expenditure needed to run laboratories. What do you need? Computers,
Right.
And the presses, if you're installing digital presses, they are not as expensive as a 6-color offset lithographic press or a 4-color press.
Yeah. Just a little, and a lot less space too. Yeah. That's really fascinating. But so in those programs, though, are they still teaching design for print?
Yes, absolutely. A lot of them are doing. At Cal Poly, we call it design reproduction technology. But where they teaching it, it's all packaged into a program. It's not necessarily only designed for print. It's
Right.
designed for imaging. Print happens
Whatever it happens to be. Right.
is one area. Design for websites is another. Design for the internet is another. With all different kinds of requirements in terms of, resolution, understanding YMCK versus RGB,
Right.
and that sort of thing.
Yep.
So it's design that teaches design for print as well as design for other imaging technologies.
Yeah. Well, that's important because everything now is multi-channel, as they say, or
Exactly.
omni-channel, or
Right.
whatever term you want to throw on it. Yeah, no, that's really fascinating. And I love that sort of history lesson on your career, sort of how it's sort of encapsulated, the transition of the entire industry, basically. And I was able to sort of ride that wave as well. I mean, my first press was a little 360 chain delivery, and that's kind of where my start in printing, when I'm in a family printing business, began. And I was able to sort of see that whole transition through. So it's kind of been fascinating ride. I'm curious, sort of what you. So so my background, Harvey, is again, I grew up in a family business. Started a company. I worked quite a bit with Adobe systems on early versions of Adobe Acrobat and PDF. Back in the day, we called it display PostScript, right? The ability to throw a PostScript image up on a screen, right? And that was really cool. And I've owned a couple of businesses that I've started and sold in that space. I was at Ricoh for quite a while here in Boulder, part of the global marketing team on the software side. Most recently, I was an analyst for a company called Keypoint Intelligence, which used to be called InfoTrends.
I'm aware of them, familiar with them.
InfoTrends was Dave Pesco and Barb Pello and all those folks that come out of Xerox. Yeah. And I since left there. That business, probably not too surprisingly, is that kind of traditional market research is really it's struggling. I mean, what customers say is, I don't need somebody to tell me which way the wind is blowing. I know which way the wind is blowing, and I don't need you to pay you to tell me that. So there were some real challenges there, and I opted to leave. And I'm
when were you at Ricoh? What years?
I was at Ricoh. Well, I was in two stints. I was in the kind of the used to be, well, before it was Ricoh USA, it used to be Icon Office Solutions. Right. So I was a part of Icon for about 7 years, from 98 to 2005. And then I was part of Ricoh proper. Ricoh corporate is based in Boulder, reported right into Japan. I was there for 7 years. So I guess I started in 2015 through 2001, something like that. As part of the global business development group there. A lot of challenges, right? For a big OEM vendor like that, the equipment is getting better. I'm not going to say cheaper, but better, more reliable. People are consolidating, fleets of printers into, one big inkjet press. It's a really challenging industry. And
probably Carl Joachim.
I'm sorry?
Carl Joachim. Did you know Carl from?
That name is super familiar.
He was a marketing VP at Ricoh for many years. He's the one who connected Telepoly with Ricoh.
Okay. Yeah. The group that I was a part of actually reported into Japan. So we were actually part of basically the Japanese arm of product development in the United States, which was housed there at the facility in Boulder. But anyways, long story short, I'm starting a market research firm really focused on what I'm calling the nature of print in a digital first world, right? Understanding where print fits in a digital first environment. Enterprises, marketers, they come out of school thinking digital first. They're not thinking print. They are thinking about digital applications, digital channels, digital marketing technologies. And, the printing industry, in my view, is really struggling to sort of see itself in the context of the massive technology ecosystem in which it actually exists.
Mhm.
A lot of my colleagues in this industry that are analysts, that are consultants, rah, print's great. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Print is great. But when you ask a marketer at a big bank or an insurance company or a healthcare provider what he or she is spending their money on, it is not print. And they're not they are digital first. And so if they do decide to do something with print, it's because it's like, oh yeah, maybe we should print this and mail it. That's some other guy downstairs deals with that, right? That's not even part of their marketing program. Right? So if you ask them to build up their stack of marketing technology that drives their big insurance company, there will not be a line in there that says print anywhere.
Right.
And that conversation needs to change if printing is going to survive, in my view. And when I say print, I am referring to print that engages, informs, drives brand awareness, basically the stuff that shows up in your mailbox, right? That kind of print. Not books, not magazines, but sort of the customer communication side of print.
Printing, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I've studied transactional print, direct marketing print. That's sort of my focus. But I'm kind of curious your view of, I still believe there's opportunity in print, but print needs to again see itself in the context of a digital ecosystem, and where we're seeing a lot of growth in print is really as a tangible vehicle to get people to engage in these things, right? It's basically, yeah, you got something in the mail, great. Okay, now go here and finish that experience. Just about everything that shows up in your mailbox is really driving you to a digital experience. And I'm just kind of curious to get your perspective on that, because I mean, that's how I see it. And it drives me nuts that when I go to industry printing conferences, they literally have their heads buried in the sand, in my view. And I think it's a real shame. And I get why they're trying to promote what they're promoting, but that I don't know. I'm just kind of brainstorming and throwing some stuff at you, but I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Well, let me break it into it this way. Let me be anecdotal for a moment. One of the things that I often bring up at some of the talks that I give, and during the last week when I was online with Mark's, where I explained it this way: print is looked upon as a necessary evil. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what I mean by that is it's something that is often needed, but print buyers hate to pay for it. They hate to spend money for it. So when something is looked on as a necessary evil, the print buyer, they want it as quickly as possible, the highest quality at the lowest cost.
Yeah. Well, that hasn't changed, right? Hasn't that been the story of the print industry for a long time?
That has not changed, right? And what the industry has to do is learn how to do that without backward steps, without missing a beat, because any backward movement in the printing process, and it's been this year forever, costs money, makes it take more time to complete a job, makes it more expensive, and it often means the difference between a profit and a loss. Okay,
right.
So it's got to be done quickly and perfectly at the quality level that the client wants, at the lowest possible cost, that lowest appropriate cost for the client. And what has happened with digital stuff is it has exacerbated that concept, in that a lot of stuff digital, at least initially, was free. You get online. So the industry has gotten used to that. Oh, I can do it for less cost and sometimes free if I do it digitally on the internet with no printing involved.
Yeah, I,
I,
I would have an argument about that, but that's another topic. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. Right.
I mean, it's not always at no cost, but it's certainly at a lower cost per um, per contact, per
Or
reaching.
impression, I guess, whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
However, may not be as effective as print. So another thing that the industry fails to understand or doesn't consider, that is the printing industry, is that regardless of all this technology that has emerged, printing remains the most detailed, the most pervasive, the most informative form of mass communication that has existed. And by that I mean that when you read something in a newspaper, it's more detailed than TV news, or more detail than the sound bites you get on your phone, or on your computer, or this sort of thing.
Right.
If you read a book, a printed book, and you go see a movie about the book, or you watch a TV show about the book, or you watch it on the internet, or a streaming thing, the printed book is always more detailed in terms of more in terms of providing information and thoughts. That's pretty interesting. You get more detail in print than watching a movie or watching something on a computer screen.
Yep.
The industry fails to promote that point, and I think there needs to be more of an understanding, an intellectual understanding of the advantages of print as opposed to the empirical disadvantages.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's we certainly hear about digital fatigue, right? We get emails, you read the subject, you might open it, you might look at it, boom, it's gone, right? And my niece just graduated, just got her MBA from the University of Minnesota in marketing with an emphasis on digital, right? And the entire curriculum was digital. They're actually, I asked her, so did you look? She's like, no, we didn't talk about print at all. And now she's in the real world. And, these marketers are sitting in their big, tall buildings saying, how do we get more customers? How do we engage? Hey, how about we try direct mail? Hey, what a concept, right? But it's not just putting something in somebody's mailbox. It's got to be personalized, right? It's got to be for essentially a book of one, a communication of one for Harvey, for Andy, for whomever. But it's interesting that these marketers are running around trying how to, separate themselves from the crowd when the answer is quite obvious to folks like us, right? It's like, you should try direct mail because it is extremely effective, at least in certain applications, right? Engagement, brand awareness, delivering information, other types of communications, maybe not so much, right? But for those things where you're trying to engage a consumer, about something new or to learn about something new, print is highly effective. And that conversation in the big buildings, the big marketing departments, they're not having that. And it's so bizarre to me when I've been studying this space, and I'm actually going to be writing about it this fall. So this is a great conversation. That I think as much as the printing industry is confused about marketing technology, the marketing technology industry is equally as confused about print. So there's this huge disconnect between these two massive markets that they are not talking to one another. Because the marketing folks, they want to drive more acquisition. They want to drive a more effective campaign, right? The printing folks are like, how come nobody loves us? And there's just like, you guys, you need to start talking. And so part of my plan and my practice is sort of wade into that conversation and say, okay, if you go and look at the MarTech, there's an interesting graphic you should look at. Are you familiar with the MarTech landscape, the MarTech 10,000, MarTech 11,000 by Chief MarTech? You should look it up. So there's this company called Chief MarTech that tracks the number of marketing companies in the marketing technology space. And it is like grown from, I think 2015, it had like 4,000 companies. Last year was 11,000 companies that exist in the marketing technology space. Guess who's not there? right?
Yeah.
There's no Xerox, there's no HP, there's no Heidelberg, there's no Kodak, there's no Canon, there's no Ricoh. You go down the list. There's no EFI. There's no, I mean, you just go right down the list. They're not even at the table.
Mhm.
And so it's just, it drives me nuts.
That conversation you're mentioning must start with the printing industry.
Yeah,
They
100%.
need to start the conversation because the marketing industry is not going to start that conversation.
No, they're not, because
Well,
if you take a marketing class, and what are the 19 channels of, marketing communication, and print is not one of them. I can name dozens of textbooks. They do not talk about print.
right. Mhm. And the way to do that, to break into that conversation, is to first understand what printing is today as a communication medium relative to all the other media that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
So, the printing industry, those in it have to be educated about that.
Mm-hmm.
They have to learn to understand. There's a model, a communication model that dates back, very famous, like Schramm's model for effective communication, Wilbur Schramm. And what he said is, in order to get your communication understood by the receiver, is you have to overlap in terms of identifiable things that you're talking about. Okay. So the printing industry, starting that conversation, must understand the language, the thought patterns, the identifiable patterns that those in marketing and sales, talk about, and speak in their terms that they understand, that they're familiar with, that they can identify with. And that's the way to start that conversation.
Yeah, I agree.
But for years and years, even the big printing companies, and quite frankly, even the media, the press, the graphic arts press, they violate a lot of rules about talking about our industry in modern terms. Basically, a lot of them still use the word shop, vocation, craft, and this sort of thing. And the industry is anything but that these days. It's scientific, it's digital, it's a profession, a lot of computer science involved, and those in the industry need to start talking about their industry in terms of recruiting new people, and generating new business in those terms, not in the terms of 40 and 50 years ago.
That is probably going to be my number one takeaway from our conversation today, Harvey. Thank you. No, that's extremely powerful, and you're absolutely right. And because the way I describe it is, you listen to the print industry, and it's basically they're yelling into an echo chamber. Everybody's saying the same thing, and they're not talking to the people they should be talking to.
They preach to themselves.
Right. And my goal is to piss off a few of those people, to be honest. But so that is just supremely, I love the scientific, the profession, the professionalism. I mean, you're right. This is a career path that is legitimate as any other career path that involves computer science or any kind of scientific skill. And you don't hear about it talked about that way.
Correct.
It's really interesting, which is really interesting. Well, I gosh, my brain is absolutely swimming. I think I touched on most of the stuff I was hoping to spend some time with you on, Harvey. So what do you do now? It sounds like you're consulting or spending time with, you said Markwires, which is actually based in outside of Boulder.
Well, no, I don't necessarily spend time with them. I know them very well. I know Patrick very well, and Mary Gay, and they approached me and asked me if they have like a YouTube TV channel. They asked me if I could do a segment. It was kind of an interview thing, such as what we're doing.
Yeah.
So we did that. But I'm emeritus at Cal Poly. I'm not retired from the industry. I have my own company. I have it's mostly a expert witness practice.
Oh, so
I specialize in patents, copyrights, trademarks, trade secrets, and technology. You have my website. So
yeah,
my sign off, if you look at my website, it explains all of that. So
yeah.
I'm still very connected with the industry. All of that intellectual property stuff that I do is for the industry. The graphic arts, graphic communication related industry, software, technology, hardware. So I support a lot of the vendors.
Hmm. Yeah, there's been some very strange patent issues. And Rico went through a big mess. Recently, I think they finally settled on that, and I was actually there through when that actually started. But patent trolls. I mean, good grief. But the other one is the QR code guys that are out trying to get everybody that's using a QR code on a printed piece.
Let me say something about patent trolls, and this is not necessarily to promote myself, but you don't hear about patent trolls any longer in the printing industry. They were all over the place. You know why you don't hear about them? Because of me. I was responsible. I worked with an attorney in Dallas, Texas, and I was responsible, or as part of a team that got rid of over 130 patent complaints that were thrown out of court. And I wrote a couple of white papers that have reached the court and judges were using in making decisions about these patent trolls. And all of a sudden they disappeared from the printing industry. You hardly hear of any of them right now.
Well, some of it is, I mean, I've heard about the one about the QR code guys that somehow feel like they have the patent on basically anything in print that references a digital experience, they have a patent on. It's like you're out of your mind. It's not the way. First of all, it's not the way patents work.
They live in a fantasy world.
But there's people that are, the fact that they're actually somehow making money and staying around and driving people crazy is the part that's just yeah, it's really sad. But I know Rico I know some of the guys on the Rico team that had to deal with some of that junk that they had to go through. But yeah, interesting stuff. So any other stuff that you wanted to share or any other thoughts before I let you go, Harvey? I really appreciate your time today. This has really been fascinating.
What you wanted to talk about, you wanted to talk about the book, which with Mr. T's book, which unfortunately I can't specifically recall, but I'll send you an email of how to get in touch with Colleen Toomey, she now has the position that I used to have at Cal Poly, and I'll give you her email address, and you can contact her with your specific question about that book, and copy me, okay? And I'll support your request. And they've got over 30,000 books dating back over hundreds of years.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. No, it's
I have the thanks to my good late friend Ray Prince, they have the whole GHF library.
Wow.
GHF was dissolved. So that'll be, I'll bet they have that book there. So I'll get you that information. And I don't know, I think you wanted to talk about that. You wanted to talk about education. Is there any other questions that you have about
kind of the state of the industry? And you've given me some great nuggets here. I'm not sure where I'm going to go next with this. I think to your point, I'll touch base with Colleen. Need to do some more work down in Tampa to find out, what's happening. It'd be just interesting to hear what his legacy is. I mean, he was a teacher there for 38 years and wrote 4 textbooks, and nobody can tell me anything about him.
Find the family. I mean, I bet you can, do a search, because that last name is unique, and I think you'll be able to. Another thought occurred to me that we're talking about digital versus print and this sort of thing. One of my latest books was an experiment with that. We produced a book Myself co-authored with John Parsons. John was
Hmm.
former executive editor of Seabold.
I think we got connected through John. That's how
Oh,
we got originally got
that's
connected.
right. He was on the first email that you sent.
Right, right, yep.
That book is a clickable paper book. Rico supported it.
Yeah. Clickable
Well,
paper. Oh yeah.
yeah, it's a clickable. It's become the bestseller in the printing industry for printing education. Over 25 schools adopted it. 4 schools in China, and we sold a license for them to translate it. It's in the North America, Canada, and the United States. It's become the main book, bestseller for education. And in that book, it's printed book, okay. However, it's most of the pages are clickable. So if you click on one page, you read about what's the introduction to graphic communication, okay. You can read about it, and then you click on the page, and I'll come up. You know,
Mhm.
a video of me talking about it's not like an ebook.
Right.
Kind of expanding upon what was read in that
Mhm.
chapter.
Right.
Or you might go onto a page about design, digital graphic design, and it tells about it. There's some pictures, and then you click on that page, and there's Brian Lawler,
Mhm.
one of the labs at Cal Poly, demonstrating how it works. Then let's say a section on, let's say, inkjet printers. So
Right.
you're reading that, and there's a picture of an inkjet printer. If you click on it, well, a video comes that shows you how it works,
Yeah.
like internal mechanisms and this sort of thing. So
Incredible amount of engineering. I mean, just amazing engineering, right? You know.
the book appeals to those who learn best from reading, those who learn best from videos, those who learn best from hearing lectures, because we have about 18 known industry people conducting lectures in the book, and you can actually sit and listen to them. So I don't know. It's that concept of being able to integrate digital within real printed books.
Yeah. That. Yep. Yep.
That may be an answer to some of the issues associated with the viability of a printed book.
Yeah, and I think there's certainly people dabbling with that. I think the scalability of that kind of augmented reality on a mass scale is really challenging.
Mhm.